and James and chapter officers and the members of the chapters and the guests. I'll have to stay close here so the folks online can hear me. If not, I'll be walking around and talking to you guys. So let's give a second until we get the presentation set up. There we go.
I just want to make sure we were recording.
Okay. Okay, so again, thank you, and as you can tell, I work for SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation, here supporting the Army Human Resources Command. Some of you guys are part of SAIC, some of you guys are some of the customers that we support, and others are just folks that I've seen around in the hallway. So I'm glad that you took some time of your busy schedule to stop by, and hopefully this will be worthwhile to you. A disclaimer. I'm going to be talking about difficulties in hiring cybersecurity folks. I am not going to be asking you for resumes to come and work for us, okay? So let's keep that clear. So I went to the Army CIO G6 when Colonel McLean asked me to come and speak to the chapter and pull this right out of their website. It says, to secure the Army Enterprise Network vision, okay? Someone has a vision of what it should be. And as you can read in here, secure, integrated, standard-based. And as soon as I start reading that, I also went to the bottom of that and I say secure. And I stopped there. And then I also went to the bottom and I say all operational phases and across all environments. And I wrote at the bottom, is that all? I mean, when you're talking about security and you talk about all phases and all environments, that doesn't leave anything out. And it's a very difficult task to do, very difficult task. And then I went a little further and I say integrated, and the word all kept ringing on my head and going in all those environments and in all those spaces. Standard base and so on and so forth, and I was going, are we there yet? And the answer is no. We got a lot of work to do, not only here, but also the same problems that are facing you here today are facing us in industry and in a couple other different areas as well. So I said this is a big, big statement and a big problem for us to solve. So how are they going to attack it? A lot of the times we'll say, well, let's just throw more money at it. Today on the email, we got a DOD budget approval, and he was talking about this right here, exactly what I just put in here. The Defense Department for 2017, see how much money they throw in against cybersecurity. But one of the things that struck in here for me is that it said that it's a 5-year-old cyber command, okay? We have been doing IT business and doing all kind of different things for years, and yet we're now bringing cyber command and recognize it as a major command within the U.S. Army. I'm pretty sure that the enemy has been working at this for far longer than 5 years. And it is not that we have not been paying attention in the commercial world and or in the U.S. Army or DOD as an enterprise, but it's been done in separate pockets and in different ways, and Colonel now is taking a more shape and form, a systematic way to attack the issues that we're facing today. Security is everyone's business, okay? We're just not talking IT security, physical securities, and things of that nature. If we look at within DOD and we step away from the Department of Defense IT arena for a second, and we go to look at what most people sometimes think of what the Army is, and go into the infantry soldier and say, what happens with an infantry soldier the minute that they step out of a vehicle? Let's say they dismount, a squad dismount. The very first thing that they want to do is they want to establish a perimeter security, okay? That is for their safety, but those that are coming behind them safety, and then they continue to expand into that and build into the security until they get a very succinct and very precise security system for the area for when they are operating. So I'll go back and say 5 years of cyber command, how have we been attacking this problem? And how are we addressing it today? And it is a lot of work to be done. Not only is for, like I said, it's everyone's business to be able to make sure that we're part of the security of a system. But if you think about it, and I think of my old Army days, I'm an old Army tanker, okay? And when we were at NTC, which is the National Training Center, and or you were at CMTC, which is a training center in Germany, if whoever was pulling security that night fell asleep at the switch, the enemy will come, and sometimes they just play a joke on you. They actually put toilet paper on your tank, or they take a chalk and write all over your tank, "I was here," let you know that your security was lacking, okay? We switched back to an IT environment where you go, if that happens, the enemy's not going to say, "I was here," or just leave a little note package in there. They are going to be taking our information, those folks that we're supporting information, your corporate information, and using it against you. So it's everyone's business. How do we go about it? So, lucky for us, gone are the days where whenever we were having a meeting and we were talking about doing a new server or a new application development or developing a new environment, and we will say, in those old days, please invite the IA or the information assured folks to come to the meeting. And they'll come and we'll say, well, you can't sit at the table. We're going to put you to the side, and we're going to ask the system administrators, networks administrators, and managers how we're going to do the business and how we're going to focus on the business plans on how this application is going to work. Once we got everything worked out, then we will look at the information assurance guy in the room and say, or gal, and said, what do you think? And they will tell us, well, we got a problem with this, and we got a problem with that, and we need to take this into consideration. And we'll say, gee, thanks. We appreciate it. That costs money. We're not going to do it. And they'll move out and do it. Then it changed more into, as we start getting more serious into the business and going, not only invite the cybersecurity or the information assurance guys to the table, all gals to the table, but make sure that they have a speaking part of what they want to make sure that we address. And we once again will hear them and go, yeah, that's going to cost money, and it's going to delay the project, so we're not going to do it. Today, luckily, we are in the process of going to develop an application or a system or a server. Let's make sure that we talk to the cybersecurity first. Let's make sure that we address the areas that could create some issues for us later on. We need to listen to those guys that are doing that kind of work. And let's put whatever we need to put in place to address those vulnerabilities that we see in the system and that they tell us that we need to pay attention to, so that way we don't get into trouble. Okay? So here's some numbers that I pulled out. I just went into the cybersecurity crime and looked in Symantec, which is one of you guys' sponsor. That's great. And looked at this, I say, for 2015. And I don't know about you, but those numbers look huge to me. When you say that the reports grew 125%, okay? Imagine if this was a physical fight and you say, I need to fight somebody one-on-one, and then tell you, all right, let's step outside. And when you're going to step outside, you go, wait a minute, there's 2 1/4 of you here. So you add another person and 1/4 another that I got to fight, okay? And it's the same thing that is happening here. You're not only going 100%, but an increase of 125%. So, and this is a daily attacks and things that we're facing in the workplace environment. So it not only affects the work, it affects us at home and many other places. And the only way that we're going to combat this is chapters like this and other places that are make sure that we're educating the workforce, and also the information that we take to our homes and make sure that we educate our families as well. I recently was watching, it was a TV show, and they were talking about a guy that was supposed to be like a medium. He could read you like a book. And they had a tent set up on a corner of a street corner. And people were walking by. It looks like it was New York City. People were walking by it, and there was 2 or 3 people that would grab some people and ask them their name, and they said, "Hey, we got somebody in here that can foretell your future and tell you things about you, or he's pretty good." And some people, I don't want to know anything. Others are like, "Okay, I'll go in and sit down." So they will sit down in this tent, and this guy will sit right across from them, and then start telling them about the car that they recently bought, the house that they recently bought. In some instances, they will tell them, "You know what, isn't your birthday on this date?" And people was sitting there astonished. They're like, how in the world he knows of this? Telling them grandkids or kids' names, telling them where they live in some instances. And they were perplexed. They surprised you. Total stranger walking down the street, somebody grabbed me, pulled me into the tent, and started telling me about me. And then eventually they let them in the little secret and said, "Let me pull the curtain back." And he said, when we ask you your name, we search you real quick on Facebook and social media. And we find out your friends were telling you happy birthday for this date. And the card that you posted that you just bought, so we told you the color of the card, and how you were posting about your grandkids or kids. So we told them all that information, So sometimes we are our own worst enemy when we rely too much on our fake book and our fake friends out there, that it will cause some issues later on, that then we turn to the cybersecurity folks and go, "How are you going to address this for me? Because my information was stolen." Okay, so we have to be careful how you do it. Today, you can go it is not just social media. You can actually go to, I live in Elizabethtown, you can go to the Hardin County Clerk office and look through records and search for Miguel Rivera, and you can find my home address, where do I live, who am I married to, when do I buy my home. You can find my deed, how much I pay for it, who my financial institution is, and so on and so forth. So we demand to have information on our fingertips. Well, when we put information is readily available at our fingertips, guess what? We're also making that information available to other people. They can use it against us. Okay? So we got to be careful what we demand, how we do here. So how do we address this information? Oh, Gilbert. A lot of us go into internet cafes or go into coffee places or go into different locations, and we have no issues with logging on to a free Wi-Fi at McDonald's or somewhere else. And I have nothing against any of those corporations. But you got to be careful what you do. Because once again, just like I mentioned, the information that they were looking at, there will be somebody else that can easily take this data from you. Okay? So how do we address this? We have some requirements from our customers here at HRC. They have come to us and tell us we need some cybersecurity folks to come in here. But here are some of the issues that we encounter as a corporation to try to bring some folks here at HRC. First of all, anyone working in this environment here at least needs to have a secret clearance. Okay, that is easier said than done. So all of you here have one. I had this off to you because we have several folks that we have tried to bring on board, and they have difficulties obtaining a clearance. Okay, we have had folks that we brought here with an interim clearance. And then when they go forward to do the complete background check, an interim clearance, they just do a local records check, banks, and some of your folks that you put in your applications that they can talk to. Eventually, they go deeper into looking at your credit scores and other transactions that you've done other places. We have folks that have started here before, and then after a month or two of being here, full background comes back and says, "Sorry, but this guy or this lady had 2 payments late on a mortgage. It shows financial difficulties. They lose their clearance, and we have no option but to remove it." Okay. We also have instances where somebody had a student loan, and they were behind on the student loan, got a job, come in here with an interim clearance, pay off their loan, and then when they do the background investigation, find out that they were behind on the loan, and even if it's paid off, they show that financial difficulties, and it costs them their job. So we have to be careful and I have some statistics to show you some of the certifications that we require for the jobs here, and across other corporations require a similar thing. And when you start talking about a secret clearance or top secret clearance, how many people are disqualified because of those instances in there? I've had folks that I have interviewed for positions, and when I'm talking to them, I make it clear about the requirement to have a clearance on day one and the requirement to have certain certifications on day one. And I have people tell me, I have enough certifications that I have done in the past, so I don't feel that I have the need to take another certification. And I'm telling them, well, by DOD regulations, you have to have this certification to be able to work on a contract. And if you don't have it, then we can't bring you on board. Well, if they can't accept the ones that I have, then I'm not doing it. We'll say, well, good luck with that and have a nice day. Okay. I have had individuals, and one of the things we do, at least with SSC, is that as an individual applies and it gets through the screening process with the recruiters and everybody else, then one of the things we do before we put that person in front of the hiring manager for an interview and the team, a technical team for an interview, is we do a pre-screening, and we ask them to fill out a questionnaire. And based on the information that we receive, they get a qualification of, red, amber, or green. And if they come amber or red, you're not getting an interview. Amber, we got to talk about it. Green, okay, let's do the interview. Once we get forward with the interview process, and you will think, okay, well, that process eliminated everyone else that will have some issues. When I'm doing the interview process with them, one of the things I tell them, this position requires a secret clearance. And in order for you to obtain a clearance, you must submit to a background investigation and tell them some of the disqualifiers. And I tell them, you don't have to disclose any of this to me right now. I'm just telling you what it could disqualify you from obtaining a clearance. Domestic violence, any criminal cases, or anything, any investigations that you have had, it could cost you not to be able to obtain a clearance. I have had folks on interviews that told me, well, I have a second-degree manslaughter from about 10 years ago. It kind of was dismissed, and I'm going, we're going to stop the interview right now, and I'm going to wish you a great day, okay? So there are some disqualifiers out there that, and you wouldn't believe what some people will tell you in the interview sometimes. And then also you got through the interview process where I have had folks that have told me where they change the oil in the car, what is the best restaurants for them to eat, and so on and so forth, which is not really pertinent to what I'm trying to address when I'm talking cybersecurity. When I'm talking about what have you done in the past to make sure that when I bring you here, you are going to be a productive member and contributing to the team members that we have here. But I've had interviews where folks have had their spouses on the phone, because they're interviewing from out of state or what have you, and I tell them, the job is here at Fort Knox. By the way, there's some folks that are in the D.C. area or other large metropolitan areas that do not want to move to the greater Radcliffe area. And when I mention to them that the job is here at Fort Knox, that it has to be done from Fort Knox, there is some opportunities for do some telecommute or telework, but that's on a case-by-case basis. But initially, they got to look at the job being 100% here, and then we can address anything outside of that. So I want to make sure that they understand that, and that their family are going to be okay leaving their sunny California or Florida or anywhere else where they are and come here. And talking to a gentleman from Arizona, he told me, well, we can ask my wife. She's listening to the interview. And I said, well, okay, that was different. I said, no, I really don't want to talk to your wife right now. I just wanted to make sure that you understand what I'm presenting to you. But I have had instances like that. And several other situations that I can just go on and on and on.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
If you're having the challenges on the DOD side, does it map also on the commercial side that they have, may not be the security clearance side, but are there also challenges that are on the commercial side when you start talking about the expanding cybersecurity footprint?
Absolutely, absolutely. So within this is not only just DOD, okay? within SAIC, our company is divided in what we call a matrix environment. And within the matrix environment, we have a cybersecurity data center matrix that focuses specifically on that. And then within that matrix and within that service line, as we call it, there's a branch that focuses only on cybersecurity. And we talk to them. They not only service DoD, they service other entities, federal government, they serve commercial entities, and they experience the same issues. How to attract the talent, how to get the talent to the locations where they need it, and how they need to meet certain certifications. You find folks that have been working for someone for 15, 20 years, and then for some reason their job was outsourced or gone somewhere else, and you're trying to bring him here, and one of the first things you ask him is talking about certifications and things of that nature, and they go, I worked for the same person for the last 15 years. They never asked me for any certifications. They know that I can do the job. I'm the good guy. I'm the good gal. So I never needed a certification, so why are you asking for certification now? And I'm going, well, the regulation is asking me to make sure you have certifications, so therefore you got to have it or it's not going to happen. And it is across multiple areas. Now, we are mainly focused on DoD and federal government, but we do have other areas where we have commercial pieces that requires some certifications, that requires some level of understanding and or education that some folks simply don't have it. Okay. So how do we address some of these things? So as you can tell, the DoD 8570 is one of the pieces that we have in there. In this area here, we have a lot of folks that are former military or veterans. There is some assistance that you can get from other environments. The primary Homeland Security has a site where you can actually get some free cybersecurity training, okay, that can assist you there. One of the things that we do, and as I mentioned in the cybersecurity service line, is we're looking internally and going, okay, the folks that are working in the cybersecurity environment, in this DoD environment, are working with folks that are Department of Defense employees that are working as system administrators, and or they are network administrators, or they are working in a special area doing some application development and things of that nature. So if we have someone that understands that environment, that is on the receiving end of the inspection and the scrutiny of what right looks like, and they're doing those things on a day-to-day basis, then why don't we look at that person and see if we can grow our own cybersecurity folks? So our company has training that they can attend, whether it's Skillport and or send them to different trainings, and try to transition those folks that are doing the system administration, they're doing the network administration, they're doing several other different areas, and see if they have any interest into pursuing a career path into the cybersecurity to try to assist them. Now, that is not unique to us. There are several companies that are doing that. They're saying we cannot hire enough of them. And the problem is that we have, and we face it, is that when you have Target, when you have other companies out there that had a breach with their credit card system, or they had a breach with some other area, or you have the Department of Defense that had a breach with something in one of the systems, the first thing that they do is they say, you got to throw more money at it. Let's get some cybersecurity folks in here, and let's get them to address the problem. And what that causes is turmoil in the workforce, because now the workforce is saying, well, I can stay here and live in the great area of Ratcliffe, if you like it here, and I have nothing against it because I live here for about 19 years. Or I can go back to DC, or I can go back to Chicago or whatever, and that corporation there is hiring, and they're going to throw a bunch of money at you for 4 or 5 or 6 months worth of work, and then you hope to find something else somewhere else. Well, what that happens is it's just pull away from the workforce here, pull away from the workforce there. Here at Fort Knox, in this specific area here, we have other companies out of the Louisville metro area that pull some of the workforce from here. So as I'm talking about us doing the homegrown and training some of these folks that we have, we get into a certain level of expertise, and then we have the companies down in Louisville and or just south of here or just a little bit north of here and go, I'll take them. You trained them, and I thank you for it. Not really, but I'll take it from you. And you know, I look at it this way. Each one of you, and me included, you know what is in your plate. You know what is cooking in your family. You know what your needs are. So you say, do I stay put here and remain loyal to this company who's done me well and helped me grow to where I'm at, and I'm supporting a great customer? And oh, by the way, when we really, really look at it, the ultimate customer here for us is that soldier with the muddy boots to make sure that his or her data is protected, okay? And or do I leave? Hopefully I'm not putting a guilt trip on anybody right now. But you know what is in your best interest, okay? So from our perspective, yes, I'm in the people's business because I do some hiring and I do talk to people and I want to make sure that we have a good team working in here. But part of that also tells me that as a manager, I need to understand that everybody's situation is different. And if they decide that they want to go somewhere and that they feel that the situation is best for them, then I do whatever I can to try to keep them here. But if I can't do anything else, I just wish them well, and I hope that they do great in wherever they go, okay? But we have some ways to try to help people to make sure that they stay put in here. Here's some certifications by the number of what I found. I actually asked our recruiter. We have a recruiter that worked with us within our organization, and she is dedicated or at least focused on Fort Knox. So she knows the area really well. She lives in the area here, so she's not describing something to you from another location and telling you, oh yeah, HRC, I think they have brown bricks around the building. No, she's been here. She's been in our facility. She talks to the folks that are coming here, and she lived in this area here. So I asked her, I said, can you pull some stats for me for some of the cybersecurity certifications that we asking some of these folks to have, and just go to LinkedIn, which is a popular, job site, and say, just do a 200 or 300 mile search and tell me, we're asking people, and our customer is telling you, they got to have a clearance, they got to have this certification, they got to have this, they got to have that. Tell me, what do we have in those certifications in there? This is the results that we found out. I asked her to first look for just the certification, and then I asked her to look for their certification and if they have a current clearance list. Okay. Now, this could be a little bit misleading because a lot of people don't list their clearances on their resume for obvious reasons. But this is what she came up with, and it's quite an eye opener. And this is not only here. I actually had someone in our company trying to win a contract in D.C., trying to pull somebody from here to take him to D.C. for a position, and I'm going. She showed them these numbers right here. I need those folks here because I cannot attract enough of them here. So it is a challenge. Not only a challenge here, but it's a challenge in the larger areas, and it's a challenge in both worlds, the commercial and the federal government. So quite an eye-opener for us, especially when our customer comes to us and say, I need more. And when I look at the cybersecurity folks that are here, and we have inspections and accreditations that are coming up that needs to be met, and they're asking them to work some additional hours. And for some people, working additional hours is great. Great, I got some additional money so I can buy that nicer car that I wanted, or make an extra payment on the house or just blow it off. But other people are going, you know what? It was okay for me to work 2 hours today extra, but actually this weekend, I want to be with the family. They're coming in from out of town, and they're going to be firing up the grill, and I want to be with them, but I know I have to be at work. And quality of life for every person involved in this is very important, okay? So how do we balance that? Quality of life for some people is, I would like to have more money, so I get some extra hours. I work. And from other people is, like myself, I got a couple grandkids that if I can put them in my arms and play with them and roll around the floor, I'm in hog heaven. I love it, okay? So I work as many hours as I can here, but when it's time for me to go home and be with the grandkids and the family, I take every minute that I can, okay? So it's a different balance. How do you strike and how you get there to make sure that you attract the correct cybersecurity folks in here and that they address the issues that the customer has, okay? I believe that is the last slide that I had in here. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you might have. And I don't know if you take questions from the online.
Oh, yeah, well, absolutely.
Miguel, just repeat the question.
Okay.
So it's released last week as part of the security clearance now that I start looking at social.
Okay, so the question or the statement made here is that it was released last week that they are going to be looking at social media sites. And I'll tell you this, I'm glad they're doing that. We're already doing that, okay? And we use that as a discriminator, okay? We find some pretty interesting things on websites sometimes. So do we look at your LinkedIn account? You betcha. Do we look at your social media? You betcha, okay? And if we see some stuff in there that doesn't look right, your chances of an interview diminish drastically, okay? And you'll be surprised, as I mentioned earlier, about the stuff that people post online and somebody else can tell them about it. We look at it. Not only do I look at websites, I look at social media, but if you have any publications out there, if you've written a book, or if you got white papers or anything like that, I'm going to look at them. I did an interview for a gentleman one time, and we were closing the interview, and he had written 2 books, and he was in the process of writing the 3rd book. He didn't mention anything about the books on the interview. But in reading a little excerpt from his book, he was talking about a butterfly who was in Arizona, and he was having problems in Arizona and was not agreeing with something, and the butterfly had to go to a different path, a different location. So at the end of the interview, he has done really well in the interview. I asked him about his 3rd book and all the books. So he told me about the first 2 books that he wrote, and I said, what about this 3rd book that I see you writing out there? He said, oh, yeah, this is a book. And he said, actually, that butterfly is me. And I said, well, awesome. I said, but that butterfly has some disagreements or something from what I read. He said, well, you know, I had a job in Arizona and just had some problems with the management team, and things didn't work out, so I left. And I said, well, interesting, because I'm looking at your resume and it doesn't mention anything about you working in Arizona. And he said, well, I didn't want to put that there. You know, it's just a short duration, like 2 or 3 months, so I didn't put it there. He's not here today, not because he didn't want to attend the meeting, just he's not here at all. Okay, so we have to be careful what we post out there and what we have open out there. If you have it out in the open for public for us to read it, we're going to read it. Because here's the key, okay? The last thing that I want is to bring someone in here that is going to do something that is going to insult my customer and or insult coworkers and create a hostile environment. I need team players, okay? We all need some team players. Whether it's here or in the commercial world or anywhere else, that's what we need. Any other questions?
How do you get access to someone's Facebook page? You know, it's not public. Is that like mandatory? You have to give the password?
So, no, sir. It is not. The question is, how do I get access to someone's Facebook page if it's not public and or if it's mandatory for them to give me access of the password? And the answer is no. We don't ask anyone for the password for the Facebook page. But if you apply for a job, we are going to search you and see if you come up on social media. And a lot of folks have very unprotected data out there, a lot of unprotected data. So I've had people ask people about their color of the card on interviews, and they're like, what? I said, yeah, I see this card that you bought here recently. And they're going, this guy's looking at my stuff. And I'm going, yes, I am. Okay? And trying to trigger them into talking about something else that I saw on their social media somewhere. Okay? So we got to be careful when we post out there.
There's no requirement. The process that they go through, what you're hearing him say right now, is as we are developing as a mature cybersecurity workforce, what you're going to find is still 85% still applies, insider threat. So everything that the due diligence done by whether they're contractors, whether they're the government organizations through CPAC, and the things they go through when they go through and do our background checks now, it's no longer cursory. They are diligent and they are thorough. The piece that I love that Mr. Rivera mentioned was that because of the competing resources, our development in the IA workforce, we're in what they call a secure job environment. All we have to do is develop as cybersecurity professionals. And when we put our best foot forward, we can be part of that development process. It's really critical, because if you are not currently in the IA workforce and y'all are looking at it, one of the core charters of this chapter is that we bring IA professionals together so we can develop, because we need IA leaders. We need all the technical people, but we need IA leaders. And this process is to have that kind of discussion, because at the highest levels, we are challenged with trying just to get to man the force, the cybersecurity force. It's really a challenge. And so they are very thorough, which by doing that, guess what? You shrink the population of people that are available. It's tough.
So that was a follow-on to, the question of, are they going to ask you or mandate you to release your password to those sites? And, a lot of times they don't need the password to just get to your sites. You can go in there and see people's profiles and see what they post. Okay. Other questions?
There's some best practices around retention once you find these skilled people.
Okay, so best practices around retention once we find the skilled people. As I mentioned earlier, not everybody dances to the same tune. What motivates someone in one area doesn't motivate somebody else in another area. A lot of the times we think, well, if we throw more money at it, it will fix the problem. And we find in a lot of instances that throwing more money at it in some instances it just not fixes the problem. So when we look at candidates or employees, we want to make sure that we're looking at the total package. We go beyond what the person brings to work every day. Now, for some of you guys in here that see me at HRC, I do a lot of managing by walking. Okay, and the reason why I do that is because I want to be able to go to someone and talk to that person, but not only talk to that person about what is going on at work. I want to be able to talk to that person and say, hey, how is the 13th grade kids doing? How is the other kid is doing? Or hey, did you win that race with that horse you entered at Keeneland the other day? So we try to make sure that we're making that connection. People have a need to feel that they are, appreciated. Not only what they do technically, but what they bring as a whole. Okay, and I try to do the best that I can. Okay, and I fail in a lot of instances, but I try to do the best that I can communicate with them and connect in a way that they really genuinely feel that I really care for them. And the issue that I have is that I do care. I do want to know how your grandchild or child did in that graduation and give you kudos and good job on all the honors they received. I do care when you tell me that your wife had to go to somewhere else in the States to take care of a mother, or I do care how you did in the Radcliffe City Council elections. All those different things. I do care about those things. Okay? So it's one of the things that it makes the workforce feel that management is not here just to focus on the business practices and just get the most that we can out of the workforce, but actually that they have their well-being at heart on what we do. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Okay, so do you feel like since you've been here 5 years plus recruiting in this area, do you feel the area between here, Lexington, and Louisville for cyber professionals is kind of tapped out?
So the question is I've been here with HRC about 5.5 years. That's pretty accurate, Mike. And he's tracking. And he must be reading my social media. And then the question at large is do I feel that the market here between Louisville, Lexington, and the surrounding area is pretty much tapped out? And depending on the skill set that we're looking for, but for the most part, I will say yes. Okay, and here's what we have. Initially, for those of you guys that are the old guard that came here and when they were putting the bricks up in this building, and by the way, I used to drive up the road here and look at this building and say, I'm going to be working in one of those offices here. Okay, because I remember when this was a World War II site here for barracks. As a matter of fact, if we move a couple feet that way, a couple decades ago, I got my shots in here before I went to basic training in those World War II barracks that were here. So when we look at the market here, what we've seen is the guys that came from in the workforce, not just the guys and gals, the workforce that came from Alexandria, St. Louis, and Indianapolis, for the most part, it was kind of a cyclical thing. They came, the ones who wanted to stay, stayed. The ones that came and say, okay, I'm only here, and this affected both government and contractors. Some of them came and said, okay, I'm going to be here. I got about a year, maybe 2 years before I really want to retire, so I'll go there for a year and do my geo-bachelor thing and then go back home. And we never were able to attract that workforce back. So then we started to clean in the market in here, pulling from different corporations and things of that nature. And then as the ones that either reach their retirement or the ones that say, okay, I came here just so I can, the best time for anyone to find a job is when you have a job. So they came here with their job, and while they keep paying the bills that they needed to pay, they were looking for a job somewhere else, and then they left and went back to another location. Again, I'm looking at this and going, I got to look at the individual and their circumstances, you know. If you were to tell me, Miguel, we're going to move you to Texas and we're going to leave your family here, I'm going to say, I do have a mortgage to pay, but I go to Texas for 6 months and I find me another job to bring you back to Kentucky, okay, because my family and my location. So if that applies to me, how can I expect somebody else not to apply? So then what we done is as those people were leaving, the ones that retire or the ones that just here for a little bit and then they left, we start focusing and pulling from the local market here. Right now, although I show you the 200 to 300 mile radius that we're looking at, we're looking beyond that. I hired people here that came from Italy. I hired people here that came from Cuba. They were working on a contract in Cuba or they were working on a contract in Italy. And I have hired people in here that were working in Kuwait and in all locations. And they're great talent. And I understand the sacrifices that they bring into the table. And if it works out for them and they make this a home, excellent, we're all winners. But other than that, it is very difficult to work in just this environment here. Now, one of the things that we key on is that if you move back home, you know, you went back to DC or Georgia or somewhere else like that, we understand. I have people that work in all the areas that are not cybersecurity there. Their home is in Omaha, Nebraska, or Georgia somewhere, either commute here or dual homes or things of that nature. But one of the things that we do is if we have someone here that gets pulled by someone else, like, for example, a corporation down, and I don't want to name any corporations, but if it's a corporation down in Louisville and they pull some of our guys, that tells me, they hired the same type of workforce that we hired. Let's go look and see if we can find who is working for them and see if we can pay them a favor back and pull 2 or 3 of theirs. And after we do 2 or 3 of their pulls, they go, hey, let's not play with SAIC at Fort Knox because we will pull them. If you hire and pull it on talent, give you a little nudge back and they go, whoa, that didn't work out the way we expected. But it's just business. We don't dislike him or anything. It's just business. Okay? Any other questions?
Talked about extra students now. Really, Department of Labor was talking about 80,000 person position job cuts. Cybersecurity. Like 314, we expect that to grow by 2%.
So the question is we talked about the additional scrutiny, looking at social media and a couple other areas that we talked about that are needed for the job. And then you heard recently that there's about a definite about 80,000 cybersecurity positions. So how does that play with the needs that we have? how to apply to the H-1Bs type of visa type of appointment. One of the requirements that we have here is that employees that we bring here, at least to this task order and the work that we're doing, they have to be a U.S. citizen. Okay, so we have had folks there, we interview and they had dual citizenship, and we told them, you got to give up on your citizenship, keep your U.S. citizenship, or you can't work on this contract. And they say, I'm not doing it. I got family that I want to travel back home and move freely, so I'm not doing it. So, okay, well, we wish you well. We do have some folks that are working in those environments in there within the commercial world. Okay, so that is a way that we can get around, but they cannot touch any federals, or they cannot touch anything that is acquisition or competition sensitive or anything like that, because the international laws and disclosures and things of that nature. I actually worked on a acquisition project one time where I was doing some software engineering and trying to do some payload integration on some unmanned systems. This is big out in the sky type of stuff that they don't need social media. We can count hairs on your head, okay? And one of the folks that came to us and did a proposal presentation for us, and this was for a government system, when we look at the proposal initially, and they were coming back to defend the proposal because it was a very good proposal, and when they came to do the presentation, we had discovered through the legal system and the company they were working with that they had had 3 international engineers work on the requirements. So the company that was the prime on the contract told them, you violated the contract fees. That's why we can't have a non-U.S. citizen works on this. And by doing that, we could not answer any questions that they will have on that presentation. So the guy had about a day long worth of presentations, and we did not ask him a single question, because if we ask him a question, we will help that company to gain more information on what we're already given. Once they were done, at the end of the whole day, and every time that the guy finished the presentation, said, any questions? He moved on to the other piece. So he talks about the avionics, the engine, the flight control, the payload, and all this different stuff. And at the end of every presentation, is any questions? Okay, let's move on to the other piece. He finished the presentation. The prime who was in the room with us thanked him, and we never saw him again. So we got to be careful. We got to calculate. And I know that the needs might outweigh, and we might say, well, let's bend the rules a little bit. We cannot afford it. That's the answer. We cannot afford it.
And one of the interesting things about your statistics you just said, that 10% piece, the contracting side is one piece of this. The government side is getting ready to go through, by 2020, a 45 to 60% turnover in all GS positions. Amazing. And they're still trying to develop cybersecurity and other requirements as they're going through this transition. So how does that impact y'all? The opportunities over the next 10 to 15 years for individuals who have the interest and have the desire to either, whether it's cybersecurity or the technical sides of what DoD offers, in our particular industry, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So it behooves us that we mentor people. We mentor teams. We mentor individuals. We find those individuals we're interested in and help them grow. It really is key. So with that,
I want to add to that. I just want to move over here so you can hear me on the mic. So development of people who are already in the field still doesn't help us with that gap. So organizations like ISC2, some of the InfoSec security leader organizations, Cisco, Microsoft, Symantec, a number of us actually have programs, not just internship programs, but they have us out speaking and trying to either do mentorship programs or so for instance, myself here, I've been at 5 or 6 universities and even a couple high school level schools that have computer programs to try to talk to the students that are going into technology but maybe haven't made their decision on were they going to be a programmer, were they going to be a networker, were they going to be ever, to talk to them about the opportunities that are here for us today and that are going to be here for us for several years because of the gap of skilled professionals. So the companies themselves are putting money to universities to try to give scholarships to get kids that way. They've got us boots on the ground trying to go out and talk to the kids. ISC2 heavily pushes that so that we can start building the next generation to come in behind us. Is it going to be successful? Will we be able to match it? I don't know. But, you know, we're in a good place. We're on a good side of that fence right now because there's more jobs than people. That help answer? Okay, thank you.
We've done the same thing with SAIC. We are in high schools. We are talking to colleges. We are going to some of the job fairs. We're talking to some university professors to make sure that they understand what the needs are here. Because some people say, well, I'm doing a computer science program, or so they don't really understand it. So the statement made here is that someone should go out and talk to like local universities, like McKendree University, who is at Radcliffe, and they're doing away with their computer degree. And my answer to you is, we've been there. Okay, we got folks in here that are McKendree professors sitting in this room right now. Okay, and we've been there. My son was the education counselor at student advisor at McKendree up to about a year and a half ago. So we've been there. We have talked to McKendree. We offered some opportunities. We try to engage with some of the students that were graduating out of that program. What the university is doing with their business case and what do they see out of the future, they are aware of what is here on their own backyard. If they go in that direction or not, that is entirely up to them. Okay.
And we're seeing a flip side of that too with some of the colleges and universities expanding their programs.
Right.
So, for instance, Jana, who has been a board member on this chapter for the last several years, Sullivan just added a number of programs there. The kids are coming out of there with certified ethical hacker certifications and CISSP certifications coming out into the workforce, like day one. Now, of course, they're doing and they have internship programs, so they've got some experience, but they're coming out with a degree and certifications, which is going to help them in work.
So I want to stop there so we can cancel the recording. Miguel, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing and taking the time. Okay, so while what we need to do is anybody who hasn't signed in, we need you to sign in. We're going to be hanging out on behalf of James and myself and IC Squared Leadership. Thank you for coming. Please take some pizza with you. I don't want to take that much home, but if you have not signed in, please.